Pursuant to New Jersey Open Public Meetings Act, NJSA 10-4-10, adequate notice of this meeting has been provided by advertising such notice in the Home News Tribune, the Asbury Park Press, the Board Office, the schools, and on Cablevision Channel 118 and Verizon Fios Channel 24, and by filing such notice with the Township Clerk. This meeting was scheduled for Tuesday, February 20th, 2018. The Board will take formal action on payment of bills and other agenda items.
The Old Bridge Township Board of Education acknowledges that the law of this state establishes that members of the public, including members of the board, have the right to record public board meetings using audio or video recording devices, provided that that act of recording does not interfere with the business of this public board meeting. Therefore, the board makes it known that any such recording is to be considered the private recording of the individual and in no manner represents the official record of this board. The board therefore takes no responsibility for such private recording and completely disavows any future use.
Roll call, Mr. Mayor.
Callie?
Present.
DeCaro? DePrima?
Here.
Dinoff?
Present.
Lent?
Present.
Reed?
Here.
Singh?
Here.
Silikowski? Dunn?
Here.
Quorum exists.
Very good, Mr. Mayor. Pledge of allegiance, please.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Let's remain standing for a moment of silence. In memoriam, move the board acknowledge the death of Arlene A. Wainbright, retired registered nurse, and John August Costa, retired teacher, and Susan Klein, retired speech teacher, and Louise Morris, a retired educator. And we want to acknowledge the 17 victims who died tragically and needlessly in the school shooting in Parkland, Florida. We express its deepest sympathy to their family and friends. Thank you. Approval of the minutes, Mr. Mayor. Do I have a motion? Sorry, we're going to take one step back real quick. We missed the Code of Ethics. We have Mr. DePrima, who's going to read it this evening. Mr. DePrima?
Thank you, Mr. Dunn. Code of Ethics Corner highlight of the month. The board member will make decisions in terms of the educational welfare of children and seek to develop and maintain public schools that meet the individual needs of all children, regardless of their ability, race, creed, sex, or social standing.
Thank you, Mr. DePrima. Moving forward, as we can see, we have the 2017-2018 district goals and also our 2017-2018 board goals. May I have approval of the minutes, please? May I have a motion?
Callie will move.
Thank you, Ms. Cowley. Can I have a second, please?
Dinoff will second.
Thank you. Dinoff. Roll call, Mr. Mayor.
Callie?
Yes.
DePrima?
Yes.
Dinoff?
Yes.
Lent?
Yes.
Reed?
Yes.
Singh?
Yes.
Dunn?
Yes.
Resolution 1 passes.
Moving forward, report of student representative to the board. Good evening. It's all yours, young man.
Okay. So our winter coat drive came to a close a couple of weeks ago. We donated over 100 coats to the organization, and when the woman from the organization came to pick up the coats, we had about 18 bags full. So I guess she wasn't expecting as many as we donated. So she had her Camry, her Toyota Camry, So we ended up stuffing all 18 bags into a Toyota Camry, and there was bags everywhere, so which is pretty good. We're starting our Gertrude Hawk fundraiser in Student Senate. It's a raffle, and if any senator sells over $250 worth of chocolate, they're in the raffle for, if you're a senior, you're in a raffle for a prom ticket, a junior dinner cruise ticket, and a sophomore or freshman, you in a raffle for a homecoming ticket. We had our lip sync battle last Thursday, which was a lot of fun. Big thanks to all the staff members who got involved. The phys ed department did a whole Beyonce number. It was pretty cool. And the Red Cross Club hosted a blood drive a couple weeks ago, which was pretty successful. The winter sports season is coming to a close, and we have a bunch of spring activities we're pretty excited for.
Wonderful, thank you. Mr. Saladino, recognition this evening?
We have a very special recognition event. This is something new to the Old Bridge School District. We wanted to impact and reach out and help those American citizens from the island of Puerto Rico who were suffering from 2 devastating hurricanes. And we worked with our Red Cross Club under the leadership of Karen Wallstein and Ms. Janine Arciero. They're both here this evening. So if they can go to the dais with Dr. Hoker, we can have the recognition. To move the board to acknowledge the Walter M. Schirra School, Jonas Salk Middle School, and the Old Bridge High School class of 2021 as the winners of the first annual Turkey Bowl Trophy. Due to the caring and diligence of these members, the Old Bridge Schools community, they collected the most goods at their respective levels in the Red Cross Club's Island Rescue Campaign for the island of Puerto Rico. As you can see, Walter M. Schirra School donated 468 items, Jonas Salk School donated 623 items, and the class of 2021 at the Ellen McDermott Grade 9 Center donated 373 items. I would like to thank Mr. Mazzola, Ron Mazzola, for putting together these trophies for us, handsomely decorated with a turkey. If anybody, if Ms. Wallstein and Ms. Arceo would like to talk a little bit more about the program and how it came about, and if not, we can also have the schools come up and just do the post pictures as well. But come on, just tell a little bit about it. Celebrate the good.
All right. Good evening. So we wanted to come up with something that we could do to help Puerto Rico in the wake of Hurricane Maria. And really, we can't take the credit for it. And by we, I mean Mrs. Wallstein and myself. The students, many students and other staff members around the building came to us and asked, what's the Red Cross going to do? So we reached out to Dr. Hoker and Mr. Cittadino. They host the annual Thanksgiving Jubilee. And in the spirit of education, caring being one of the pillars, we thought that that would be a perfect time for us to give back, as Old Bridge always seems to do. And we decided to work with this You Good Gifts campaign, where you can go on and the school, make it a friendly competition, and the school that donated the most items would win the first annual Turkey Bowl Trophy. And that is what leads us to tonight. So we'd like to thank Mrs. Barrett and Schirra, Mr. Rezes and Salk, and Mr. Dolan and the freshman class. So thank you so much for your participation.
Why don't we have the kids stand up there with each one?
Maybe if all the groups can come up and just take the picture up front, all of you together collectively as one with your 3 trophies, it'd be great.
You go right into the center on the stage. Ms. Barrett?
So while they're assembling, just the significance of the turkey is that every year we have the Giving Back Jubilee. It kicks off right around the day before Thanksgiving. We get together as a school district and find ways and groups that we can help out by donating. So this will be the first. We've done the Jubilee a few years, but this will be the first time with a trophy, so we'll continue this for years to come, and hope the rest of the schools can win as well. So thank you very much, everyone, and congratulations.
May I have a motion for recognition, please?
I'll move it.
Thank you, Mr. DePrima. Can I have a second?
Singh will second.
Thank you, Mr. Singh. Any discussions? Any comments on their wonderful efforts to help needy people in need? Roll call, Mr. Mara.
DePrima,
Yes.
Dinoff,
Yes.
Lent,
Yes.
Reed,
Yes.
Singh,
Yes.
Callie,
Yes.
Dunn.
Yes.
Resolution 1 and 2 pass.
Thank you, Mr. Mara. Moving on to the superintendent's report.
Okay, we're going to do two parts today, if the board will indulge me. I know a lot of parents are here to discuss school security in the wake of what has happened in Florida, and I would like to open up after a few comments the dais for parents just to ask questions that we can answer the best we can, or to just give thoughts and ideas. And then any other topics after the progress towards goals would be to any other topics beyond that. So kind of like two hearings of the residents. This way, many of the residents who are here for that specific topic can voice their thoughts and go from there. I will say prior to coming to the dais at any point that through working with the Old Bridge Police Department and our legal counsel, we intentionally do not give a lot of information out about our school security plan. We do that because we have been informed that is the best way to keep those who want to do us harm in not knowing. You don't want to, like any football coach will tell you, you don't show everyone your playbook. And we do our best to keep our playbook protected so no one knows what we're doing and when we're doing it. So just a few thoughts prior to that. And just to keep in mind that these thoughts are my thoughts. I'm not speaking for the board. I'm speaking as a superintendent and as a father. And I speak to this board and to the public as one educator of hundreds of thousands that has had enough. We've had enough of gun violence in schools, enough rhetoric, enough finger pointing, enough complacency. In the wake of the school shooting 5 years ago at Sandy Hook Elementary School, only a 2-hour drive from Old Bridge, the Old Bridge Board of Education, the Old Bridge Police Department, and the Mayor's Office came together to craft measures to protect our schools with what was once the first programs to place armed Special IIs in our elementary schools and SROs at the secondary schools. Those measures were sound and just at the time. We all believed this sick disturbance within the atmosphere called the school shooting would be minimized over time by strict legislation aimed at keeping assault weapons away from schools and at the minimum, keeping them out of the hands of persons suffering from mental illness. Unfortunately, no such laws have been passed, and it is once again up to this Board of Education, Police Department, and Mayor to come together to bolster our school policing plan and protect the lives of our student body and our dedicated staff. You, the taxpayers of Old Bridge, will have to foot the bill, while greed and negligence allows manufacturers of the AR-15 to account for $8 billion in sales per year. I know that may offend some people, but I'm not here to give apologies. I worked in one of the highest crime cities in New Jersey. That crime was outside the school, there was poverty outside the school, and there was mental illness. Yet not one gun was needed within the school to protect our children. I don't have all the answers, for I'm an educator. I'm not an expert in law enforcement. I only have simple questions. How can a man from Las Vegas set off no alarms when he stockpiles 47 weapons? I can't even stop to get Sudafed at CVS and Old Bridge on the way home and then stop again at Walgreens in East Brunswick to make the same purchase without being detected. Do these pharmacies have a program in place that can't be developed just to notify people if someone buying a large stockhold of weapons over a short period of time? How is it possible that a 19-year-old with documented mental illness can't purchase a wine cooler in Florida, but he can purchase an assault weapon? If you don't have the maturity to make decisions about alcohol consumption, how do you have the maturity to purchase a $700 piece of semi-automatic weaponry? If this was strictly a mental illness problem, why are there 98% of mass shooters men between the ages of 15 and 55? The records indicate that there are equal number of women who suffer from mental illness. Is it because the percentage of people that purchase the AR-15 are almost equally 95% men? I'm afraid that these questions will go unanswered, and even though I see so much promise from our youth, who too have witnessed enough carnage in a lifetime, The Old Bridge Township Public Schools will continue what it has done for years, adjust to this sad new normal by working with the New Jersey Department of Education, our state police, the Middlesex County Prosecutor's Office, and our very own dedicated Old Bridge Police Department, and we will continue to fortify our district school facilities. We responded quickly to the latest tragedy in Parkland High School, and we've only just begun. I encourage all of you members of the public to support your board members who will have to make very tough financial decisions to protect our town's children. To me, the children, law enforcement personnel, and our professionals in the schools and this Board of Education will be the heroes that we rely upon to safeguard our future. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Cittadino. Mr. Mara, do we have any correspondence this evening?
No correspondence.
If we have anyone in the audience this evening who wants to come up to the dais and speak their mind regarding the words of wisdom that our superintendent has just shared with us, please do so. I think this would be a good time to discuss our security measures and discuss what we are doing here in Old Bridge right now to protect our students and fine educators. So please, if you'd like, come up to the podium. Madam?
The one thing I will say before any speaks, I will ask our attorney to protect us as best as possible. If there's any line crossed where asking a question would require us to provide too much information, I'll ask him to step in. And again, it's not to be rude, but I do not want to put too much information out there that's unnecessary. Do know that we are doing everything we can to protect our schools, and we will continue to do so. But this is a good, if you have a question we can answer, we will try. If you have a suggestion that maybe we haven't heard, share that with us as well. That's why you're here tonight, because you care as parents and as families. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. I just wanted to actually kind of say a few things that Mr. Cittadino also said. But we are having this discussion way too often, and it causes us to come out time and time again. I just also would remind us here in Old Bridge, several weeks or several months before the Sandy Hook tragedy, we had our own tragedy here in gun violence. And we had the census loss of 2 lives. It didn't happen here on school property, but Christina and Brian were our own. And we can't allow that to get any closer than it has already. Mr. Cittadino touched on some of the points. I personally believe it's, when we see this, it's convergence of 3 different things. One is the mental health of somebody who is driven to carry out such a heinous act. There is the accessibility to a facility where children are just in school for a normal day. And there is that accessibility of a weapon whose sole purpose is the rapid, indiscriminate carnage and death. But I can tell you, and I don't know if as many people know, that in those 5 years, while we can't focus on all 3 of those, this district has focused on 2 of those that are in their control. As Mr. Cittadino outlined, there is a great deal of security going on, and you can't lay that playbook out because then, it can be cracked. So I can say that because you don't see it doesn't mean it doesn't exist, and you don't want to see it, so it can't be broken. But just as importantly, the one thing I think we do here at Old Bridge is we focus on the well-being and the mental health of our students, which is something just as important as anything else. That's why, as a district, we have guidance counselors in every elementary schools, and you don't always see that throughout the state. We have behaviorists, especially at the high school level, where we can dedicate time in those high-risk students and give them the services and the help they need before they reach that breaking point. Even this last year, if you think about it, the proactive things that we've done in this district, as a community, we came together and we did our first community strategic plan. 2 of those pillars that we have is safety and security, as well as the whole child. So I think that this district recognizes the complexity and works on a comprehensive plan. I would like to say, though, 2 things I would not like to see as you go forward with a plan. Because every plan can be improved, and there's always new technologies and new ways to tackle it. What I do not want to see is our schools be fortresses where children are in constant lockdown, treated as if they're criminals. I also do not want to see, because sometimes I see this out there, teachers armed. Dear God, our teachers have enough to worry about day to day. We don't want that to happen. So I just wanted to come out to say I can support the school district in what they're doing, to continue the efforts that they're doing, and I appreciate the opportunity to include the public in this crucial discussion. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Ellis. Thank you, Ms. Ellis Forster. Anyone else like to come up to the podium?
You can just form a line, so this way we'll know they're there and we won't call it up again. Just please let us know your name.
Hello, Teresa Burns from Lawrence Harbor. So I have a question. Mrs. Foster spoke about behaviorists. Can I ask how many there are throughout the entire district?
2.
So 2 for 9,000 children. Do we really think that, how do we go about then increasing our staff numbers to make sure that the mental health issue in this district, if, I'm not sure how many children are diagnosed or anything like that, but it just seems disproportionate. So I'd like to piggyback on what she said. Thank you.
We do have 2 on staff. We do outsource many of our mental health professional experts and behaviorists, and, you know, sometimes the behaviors we see aren't not from someone who has an IEP or a disability. Mental illness takes various forms. Any student who has exhibited mental illness or exhibited behaviors that might be borderline mental illness, we make sure that we send them to out for a psychological evaluation so that we are sure they're not a threat to themselves or others. And while it's costly, I wouldn't have it any other way. I think the best thing we can get out of it, a lot of times parents won't take that first step to take their child to a therapist or for an evaluation because of the stigma attached to it. So by mandating that it has to be done before you bring your child back to school, for many families it is that first step, and you realize, you know, it wasn't bad to talk to someone about my feelings. And, you know, even I always say that good kids make bad decisions, and that's what happens most of the time. Even in the aftermath of this, you would think that, and even my, you know, calls out to parents and so forth, letting them know that we're going to have a zero tolerance of this, it still happens. And it's shocking to me that it still happens, because I know the parents sit and they talk to the kids and say, listen, it's not funny to post things on social media. It's very high alert. But in the aftermath of that, just this week, I've had to send at least 3 students out for that type of evaluation to an outside therapist or behaviorist to make sure that they're getting the help and support they need.
I'd just like to add one thing. Then you said that parents didn't seem to have the tools that they need to talk to their child, or they didn't want to take that first step. I know that you have Parent University. I don't know if you'd be willing to put something out there in that format for parents. Thanks.
I agree with you 100%. It's something we would do. You know, we've had this conversation for many tragedies that have happened in this town, and it's one of the things I always say is, you know, if someone has chest pains, they seem to go right to the doctor without thinking about it. If someone has abdominal issues, right to the doctor. If you fracture a leg, it's right to the doctor. But when someone's suffering from mental illness, there's this stigmatism that, you know, let's try to work our way through it, maybe, you know, sleep it off and hopefully it goes away, that we don't go right to the doctor. You know, the mind, the brain is the most important organ of the human body, and we have to take better care of it.
Thank you. Anyone else? Next.
Hi, my name is Brian Murphy. Lifelong resident of Old Bridge. I spent all my years going through the Old Bridge school system, and now I have 3 very young children who go through our Old Bridge school system, and I'm very proud that they do. I will support everything this board and the superintendent does for us, and I'm confident you'll keep our kids safe. Here's my issue on this. I don't know if it's a mental health issue. I don't know if it's a gun control issue. I don't know where I stand on that. But please tell me, we're adults in this room. We can argue this, we can talk about this. Please tell me you're not going to involve our children in this March 14th walkout protest. Please tell me that the Old Bridge school system is not planning on participating in that with our children. If not, if you are, then I have other things to say about that.
Sir, you stated that your children are at the elementary school.
Correct.
Right, so, and.
They're children.
Right, they are children at the
They're
elementary.
not adults.
Right, they are children at the elementary school, and we are working with the administration and any high school age students who have thoughts about this, that there are life lessons that can be learned in different ways, and I have a meeting tomorrow with some of the leaders at the high school to have those conversations with them tomorrow, to be very proactive and look at different ways in which you can exercise freedom of speech, exercise civil disobedience, and exercise your being fed up with what's going on and no one's listening to you without putting yourself or others in danger. So those conversations will be ongoing, and they'll be with leaders of the high school tomorrow. And you're absolutely, it's not an elementary school thing, it's not a middle school thing.
Yeah, my concern also is it's during school hours. I mean, is that in our curriculum? That we're going to protest? I don't care if it's, that rabbit doesn't like Winnie the Pooh, but we're protesting during school hours, and that's not what, as a taxpayer, I'm paying for my children to be educated, not to learn how to protest or an organized demonstration. That's my feeling on that. And with my children, not all in elementary school, one of them is in 6th grade, my wife and I make those decisions for them, they don't, as a parent. So that's my feeling on that.
Mr. Murphy, as Mr. De Cededino has stated, we are going to look into the feasibility of discussing this with the high school students and the council and see exactly how we're going to proceed. And we will have more information, and we will work on it to ensure that the information gets dispersed correctly to the citizens.
I appreciate that.
Thank you, Mr. Murphy. Next, state your name, sir.
Do I have to hold this the whole time? No, there we go. All right. Tom Fisher, I'm an Old Bridge resident. Thank you, Mr. Cededino, Old Bridge Board of Ed. It's kind of hard to follow what's been stated already, and I don't want to waste anybody else's time, but, you know, that's one of the things that I had a concern with is I told my children, who are both in the high school, absolutely no walkouts. You're not walking out of school, you're not protesting, that's not what you're there for. You're there to learn, you're there for going to school. And I don't want somebody to get some pre-planned notion of something going on, because that's just an opportunist's way of exploiting a situation to be out there and do something that's inappropriate for this, all right? If it's not going to be controlled by the school, if it's not a school function, my kids are not participating in it, all right? The other thing is, you know, I think this board does a great job on setting up these schools for success. I think that we should continue that, let teachers teach, focus on that. Let security personnel, the police department, the mayor's office focus on security. If that means taking extra measures to make sure our schools are secure and provide them with the behaviorists that we need in order to take care of the kids that do need help. Because that's where we're falling short. A lot of these kids are, it's unfortunate, but it's the home life. But we've got to do something for these kids.
Thank you, sir. I appreciate that, and I appreciate you acknowledging that there's no remedy to this problem that we're going to come across that's not going to have a dollar amount to it. So this Board of Education needs to know that you support that.
Thank you, sir. Anyone else? Yes, sir.
Chris Leon, Old Bridge resident. I've worked with the school board in the past. I just want to pretty much second what Ms. Ellis Foster said. The Board of Ed and the school system have done an outstanding job. I'm kind of envious of my children, because had I gone to school in a system like Old Bridge, I'd probably be a lot more successful in life. In regards to the police force, Old Bridge is an amazing town. It's one of the safest towns I've ever known. I grew up in, sorry, I'm a little nervous, public speaking. I grew up in a town that wasn't the nicest of towns. But this town is amazing. I put my trust in the Board of Ed and the Old Bridge Police Department because I live here. And I've seen the work they've done. I've helped in some of the work they've done. Very little bit. And that's pretty much all I have to say about that. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Leon. Mr. Leon, he was referencing, he was part of our strategic planning committee that was open to the public. He took such a vested interest in it. We selected him for smaller committees too. Took up a lot of his time. And again, that's why I thank you parents for being here tonight, because the significance of your time is the most important thing you can give us right now, your time and patience and support. So thank you.
Madam?
Good evening. I can talk loud. Okay. My name is Renee Russell. I'm an Old Bridge resident, recent transplant from Brooklyn. I'm a former New York Assistant District Attorney, criminal defense attorney. And with all of the criminal training I have, I was also a professor at Rutgers in criminal justice, juvenile justice. What seems to be missing, and what I've heard in countless, news reports of these incidents, is that this child was ostracized or alienated, and in addition to the mental health issues. And I was very impressed when my daughter started going to Miller, because there was at one point that the principal there implemented like a bench, so that the kids, if they were ever alone, and they had no one to play with, they would go sit on the bench. And if you saw someone on that bench, you'd go over there and befriend them and go play with them. I think what's missing is that the children are being so cliquish. There's no kindness and generosity and kind of embracing each other. And I think it comes from the home. It comes from the parents. And if more and more parents were, and it's not an easy Band-Aid or quick fix, I just think it would go a long way if it started from home, that we told our kids to go out to school and to befriend others, to be kind to others, to be understanding, to be compassionate and empathetic. So that's all I have to share. Thank you.
Thank you. Sir?
Good evening. Hello, Mr. Cittadino and Board of Ed. For those who don't know me, my name is Jared. I'm a senior here at the high school. I've been in the Old Bridge District for 13 years, all the way from kindergarten through now. And since my start here in 2005, I am 100% certain that I have felt safe in this school district. In relation to the aftermath of the recent events, yes, there are walkouts that are beginning to occur throughout the country, and there has been talk of one here at the high school happening within the next month. I am 18 years old, and I have the same rights as all of you, and I know my First Amendment right. I know that I am allowed to peacefully protest. This isn't something that's going to happen at a random day at 10 a.m. where all 3,000 of us are just going to be walking out of the school. That is absolutely not our intentions. I know that we will be planning this accordingly with our administration, and we want to do this correctly, and we want to express our rights as students and how we feel as a student body of a regular high school, just like everyone else in this country. So that's what I have to say. So thank you.
Thank you, Gary.
Thank you. Madam?
Hi, good evening. Jeanette Riggleman. I don't really expect an answer, or it's just a concern that I wanted to share. And I know it's only one day a year, but in June during the primaries, it really bothers me that the school doors are wide open to the general public when, on a day-to-day basis, parents have to buzz their children in and, ourselves in, and visitors have to be buzzed in. But that one day a year where my daughter goes to morning care most days, and when I pull up and the gym doors are wide open and it's fabulous to see the American flags outside, but it's a concern for me. And I had spoken to the principal when my daughter was in kindergarten, and he said, we have an officer here. That's still not enough. Like, they're already in the building. I know the gym doors are locked, but they're already in the building. You never know what's going to happen. So I know it's one day a year, and it might sound trivial, but it's definitely a concern of mine. So I know it's planning with the board, with the township council and everything, but I just think there's so many other areas in town that we could utilize when we have that voting.
I agree with you, and I couldn't state that I agree with you more. Myself, Business Administrator, Mr. Mara, have had that conversation with the county election boards, and when we've asked to move them out of schools, because like you said, we don't believe inviting strangers into schools is the best form of way to express your right to vote. We've been told absolutely not, they will keep coming to the schools. It was our measure to put in place that we pay for ourselves with the Old Bridge Police Department to put police officers in every school that's a polling place, and to put a barrier between the voting area and the rest of the school. Election day, the big election day in November, we do use that as one of our professional development days for our staff so that students aren't in the building, but that still leaves us with 2 other primary days in which we have to, because they're usually lower turnout, we do open it. Our other choice is to close schools those days, but currently it's been working for us to put, again, armed police officers in there as a form of defense in case any intruder is coming through.
Anyone else like to comment? Madam?
Donna Mikey, I'm a lunch supervisor at the school in Old Bridge here. Also, my kids went to Old Bridge. Fantastic they did in the schools. They did really well. But anyway, my concern right now as a lunch mom is we have the kids out in the schoolyard for like maybe 40 minutes a day. I'm wondering, is there any way we can somehow get police officers to stay at all our schools all day instead of coming like in and out for 20 minutes and then maybe leaving for a couple of hours and then coming back again? And especially when we're in the schoolyard, sometimes we have 70 kids just running around. We have a teacher with a walkie, but that's about it. And I've been a lunch mom for 10 years. I always felt very comfortable. I don't feel comfortable no more. And also, where the tragedy was, my son is a Broward County sheriff. So, he was trying to give me a little advice if, God forbid, if something happens. But I would just like to know if maybe that was on the plate as far as, getting police officers all day at our schools.
I will say that is something that this Board of Education and the Police Department has had preliminary conversations about. This Board of Education will convene tonight in an executive session to talk about more measures and multiple measures above and beyond that.
Okay.
But that is something that is on the table and will be considered, as many other things will be considered. But I thank you for sharing that with us, and I thank you for your son for serving.
Oh, thank you. And I appreciate that. Thank you. Have a good night.
Thank you. Sir?
Hi, my name is Ron Varial. I'm a product of Old Bridge, like so many of you. My son is now a kindergarten student, so this has now brought a lot of this home to our family. I have 2 questions. The first kind of piggybacks on what some others have said. I worked in Manhattan in the years after 9/11, and even in the mid-2000s, there was a strong police force with military-style weapons, a full military-style force. And for us adults, it was reassuring, and it was encouraging. I don't think that elementary students will feel encouraged that way. So on the flip side of that, the police are some of the most respected people I know. Speaking to my son's friends, they want to be cops when they get older. How do you balance that safety and security while not crossing the line to being a threat and raising more questions for the students than being basically a security blanket.
I think one thing that's really worked with us is the community policing aspect that we have in place. The police officers who work in the schools, we try to keep them at the same schools so they get to know the students and they get that familiarity with them, but not just, standing guard and, like you said, having assault weapons out that would never be allowed in a school. They are armed, but not to that level, and the greatest information you can get in intelligence is from the students. So we don't want to intimidate children or even high school students to make them feel as though they can't speak to the police or anyone there. When they have that open set of dialogue and they feel comfortable, that's when you're going to get information. That's when you're going to get a student to come up and feel comfortable and feel as though I have something I want to share. So that's the best way we do it. I know either our special twos, the SROs, they're involved in so many different activities with the students. I was just with the students who will be working for Relay for Life. It was sponsored by the PBA. The SRO in the school was there, talking about how he's going to take them all ice skating, and they all know him by a first name basis, Officer Steve, and how he likes Boston cream donuts and everything else. So, that's the aspect of taking away that protective barrier that a police officer might have, that he's a resource, but not only a resource, but he's a friend to them. And I think that's something that works with us. And we do get a lot of information from our students that way.
The second half of my question, we've talked almost entirely tonight about building a fortress, around the schools in a way that'd be protective. But I ask you as an entire board, as one of the largest districts and you're a powerful organization in this state, what are you doing at the state level and as a group to show your might for the other two pieces that you talked about, which were gun control and also mental illness? And just as a caveat, we talk so much about mental illness that I think it becomes a red herring. Some of these shootings have just been pure hate and pure evil, and I fear that we almost give them an excuse by saying they were mentally ill, because there are a lot of mentally ill people who do not do these things. So I ask what you're doing, from a policy perspective, and what you as a board feel you can do with the new governor and, beyond just the confines of Old Bridge.
I can only speak for myself, and I ask, any board members want to speak to what they would do as a citizen. Again, my words in the opening are not just words. I've never said them before as a public figure, but I've truly had enough. I've just, I sat and we did stuff after Columbine as an educator. I was part of, in the classroom, when they first started here, my first day as assistant superintendent, the Pathmark shooting took place. Soon after that was Sandy Hook, and we did protective measures, but, I'm at the point now where, I'm going to voice my opinion. I'm going to put it out there. It was already picked up by social media. I've had several news outlets ask me my feelings and thoughts, and I haven't held back. There was just an article in the home news, and most of the rhetoric was the same things. We have to do this, we have to do this. We've done that. I'm tired of that. It's not working. Give me something that works, because this isn't working. So it seems to me that there are quick fixes when they want a quick fix. I'm not belittling lead testing, but you would have think that every child in New Jersey was falling ill to lead poisoning, the way that law came out so quickly and mandated that we have water testing. I guess, there's not a big enough self-interest group to support not water testing, because we water tested twice because we wanted so much water testing, and that law happened very quickly. If they get that upset about water testing, I'd love to see them get upset about, the carnage that's happening in our schools and make some changes and make some laws to make it different.
Thank you. Madam? Young lady.
Hi, I'm Kyan Russell. I go to Jonasock Middle School. I don't feel safe at the safe corners when we have the drills, because it's right next to the door, and if somebody actually does come in, they can knock the door with their gun and it will break. They can open the door through that, and we're right next to the door and they can hurt us. So I don't really feel safe, and sometimes it's far away from the door, but I feel like they can still do the same thing. And yes.
Well, thank you for having the courage to stand up there and tell us that. You know, the hard part is we do everything we can within a school to make you feel safe and to have a drill for the worst case scenario. But the scary thing is you don't know the worst case scenario till it happens. And when we work with your teachers and your principals and everyone there on keeping you safe, we come up with even ideas that would work in certain situations, like you're talking about someone looking through the window. So we had the idea of, if you have someone outside to test that, to look what's the furthest point against the wall you can see, and then you put tape down, so make sure everyone stays to the right of the tape. This way, in a real situation, you don't have to think, am I far enough against the wall? Let me make sure I'm on the right side of the tape. But then there's always something that you have to worry about. And my best suggestion to everyone is to take all those drills seriously. Practice as if you play, because if you think about it, if you have to think about it when it really happens, that's when it gets dangerous. So we're going to keep on drilling and putting measures in place to try to make you feel safe. And I apologize that you don't feel safe every day when you go to school.
Thank you. Sir?
How you doing, guys? Brian Fitzpatrick. First, I wanted to just say thank you for taking the time to hear us all out. I know we have a lot of concerns. One of the things that I think that we notice the most when we hear about school shootings or any mass shooting is that somebody somewhere knew there was something wrong and didn't say anything. So what do we do about how I guess my question is, how do we change the culture so we make it where it's okay for our kids to speak up without being ridiculed later on? Because what we've noticed, or what I've seen in the past with some of our children, that they have spoken up about something they didn't feel was right, and they've either been, I hate to use the word bullied, but bullied later on about it, that it turned out to be nothing, or a teacher didn't take them seriously, or somebody didn't take the situation the same way the student saw the situation. So whether it turned into nothing or not, they weren't taken seriously.
So a few things on that. One, I'm going to share because this will be very public, so I can share this because it only works because it's public, is and a concept that Mr. Mara brought to our attention. This is a program that works with the local police department, and it's endorsed by our overall insurance writer. It's a tips line. It's anonymous, encouraging students, staff, parents, anyone, if they know someone who's behaving erratically, that causes alarm, that you call this number. You remain anonymous. They have professional screeners that screen it to see if they feel it is a real threat. And, not someone, I'm going to get that person by calling this in. And they report it directly to the Old Bridge Police Department. And we've spoken to the chief of police about it. He said, anything call they get, they will investigate. They're not going to rescreen it again. They're going to take it and go from there. So having a measure in place that allows that anonymity, I think, is important. We encourage that anonymity in reporting within our schools itself. We have seen an increase in students reporting on situations like that, like you're talking about. That's how we became aware of certain things. There are like, even after this event that I've sent alerts out about people copying thoughts or something like that was proven to be nothing because of students saying something to the parents. So we want to obviously continue to look through that. We do have measures in place that our own surveillance of information. We're looking at different opportunities to use an outside source that scours social media for potential threats to a school or a community, and looking at that as a resource as well. It's amazing to me that I have to sit here and tell you that that's something we have to look at doing, but, I went to school to learn how to teach math, and now I'm thinking about how to scour social media. I should have went for the NSA. All right, but that's something we're looking to do. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Madam?
Hi, Francine Miragli. I'm a resident of Old Bridge. I'm also the PTA president at Carl Sandburg Middle School. I have 3 children in the district, one at the grade 9 center, one at Sandburg, as well as a kindergartner at Memorial. I'm speaking as a PTA president. My phone has blown up since the alert that went out about the incident that involved Sandburg. I can't answer these people's because we don't have the answers. We're not being provided with, was it a bomb threat? Was it just a social media thing? No one's telling us, and I respect that because you have to keep it at bay. I have a text message this morning at 7:30 from a mother whose child is crying. Am I sending my son to school because her son doesn't want to go to school? My answer is I'm sending my son to school. And I'm going to hope and pray that he will be fine. I hope they all will be. But as a PTA president, as well as any other PTA president or any PTA board member knows, they come to us for reassurance. We need answers. We need to know, like East Brunswick put out their plan. Was that the smartest thing to do? Maybe not. But we don't have answers. I still feel like we're sitting here and we don't have an answer. Like, we're going to have police at every school. We're going to have all day, every day. How long is it going to take to get those answers? When are we going to know? I've been in the middle school during a lockdown. The kids are visibly upset. As an adult, as a 40-something-year-old woman, I was shaken. It's hard. It's hard as a parent. It's hard to be that person that people come to and say, what do I do? I don't want to have to tell someone to send their kid to school or not. So maybe there could be a good line of communication with the PTA presidents, the board members, somehow to figure out a way that we can help. What can we do? The social media, I get it. I agree. My Facebook blows up. They ask us the same questions. That was really all I had to say.
The one thing I can just reinforce to the parents, and I sent out an alert last night saying that just getting off the phone with the police, having visited upon every possible concern or threat that was being, lobbied back and forth without even, sometimes I think the students will go with something even if there's nothing behind it. And, so after speaking to the police up until, I think I sent it out at like 8 o'clock last night, a little 8:30, the schools were safe. I sent out a message to the parents. The schools are safe. There'll be increased police presence. There is an increased police presence since Valentine's Day. There'll be a continued police presence. I'm not going to tell you how many more police presence, but there's more since then. And I promise you, if there's something that's going to be, my mission is one thing, I've told everyone this since the first day. I want to send the children home to you a little better every day than you send them to me every day. If they come home a little worse every day, then I'm not doing my job. So if they come home to you a little better than you send them to me every morning, then I'm doing my job. So if something is a threat that I'm worried about, you'll know about it. I'll use every measure possible, whether it be real-time alert, whether it be an email, text message. Your phones will blow up if there's a problem in the schools that I want you to stay away from the schools. You have to understand that with students, sometimes there's a little game of, it's got to be a little more elaborate each time the next kid tells a story. Oh, do you hear about this kid, what he's doing? So those things can be exhausting for parents, and especially as the PTA, because you are where they come to for answers. If something is a concern for parents, direct them to me. I put a number out last night on one of my, that is a cell phone number. Okay, and they can call that number.
I share on our Facebook page, whatever.
I don't answer that phone for anything else but an emergency. It's not like, I don't use that phone to call district people and say, what's going on in the schools. It's just only for district emergencies. So if there's a concern, they call that number. If it's not, but my first call would be the police department. If it's something severe enough that you think it's then call the police department. If they're saying, I'm not sending my child to school because this and this, maybe the police department hasn't heard about it yet. Call the police department. If you just have a question, and, you know, they want to be, during the waking hours of school, call my office. Show me an email. I check my email all day, all the time until I don't go to sleep till midnight. I check it up until midnight. So, but other than that, if it's outside of the hours, and if it's important enough for you, it's important enough for me, call that number.
What's going on? And you are doing a great job.
They didn't want
and we
anybody to
thank
hear you
you.
say that, so they turned
Thank
on.
you.
Thank you.
Thank you, madam. Yes.
Hi, I'm a senior at Old Bridge High School. My name is Gabriella Bordnabi, and this really isn't a suggestion or a question. It's more just an experience. It was like 2 weeks ago before all of this happened, and you know that's really not the first thing in your mind. But we went into a lockdown drill, and again, I've been in the school district for how long, so it's routine. You do all the things you have to do. But that day we had a sub, and I don't know if it was just she wasn't accustomed to what we were supposed to do, but it was more panic in her. I don't know why, but I kind of was just like, all right, give me the key, I'll lock the door, where's the key? And again, don't know really why I did this, but I walked outside, tried to lock the door, and Officer K came running down the hallway. He said, get back in the classroom. Couldn't find the key, so he locked it. And with the recent events that just happened, I just can't imagine if that wasn't Officer K running down the hallway. So I just want to make sure that things like that, I know we talk about all these things, but the littlest thing is just a substitute, knowing procedure and stuff. I just want to make sure that's like a thing, because again, it was just a little scary and it wasn't even real. So that's all I have to say.
So on that day you're talking about was one of the specific dates when I worked with the Department of Education, State Police, and so forth to come in and do it. Mr. Sasso, no one else knew about that drill that day. And we wanted to make it as realistic as possible, because I learned something that day. Because too often we've been too soft with our students and our staff by saying, this is a drill, let's do what we're going to do in a drill. And then everybody's like, oh, it's a drill. Okay, you go to the safe corner, no one panics. We want you to panic, because what I learned was, if not, we're saving all the panic for the real thing. Act like it's the real thing, practice like you play, and it will prevent that. So in that, when you come out, she probably thought it was a real situation, that it identifies for us that maybe we have some more work to do with our substitutes. I know we're going to start a protocol where they have to sign off as they get their keys and so forth in the morning, going through the checklist of what the protocols are for lockdowns and so forth. So out of that came something good. There was not only, we did that in 3 schools, and probably some of the areas that were biggest concern where substitutes were in a classroom. At all the schools, the doors are supposed to be locked at all times. They open them when they need to open them, but it's easier to have your door locked than have to lock in an emergency. So the substitute obviously didn't know that and didn't keep the door locked. So thank you for sharing that, and we'll make sure we continue that in our training.
Thank you.
Thank you, Gabrielle.
Thank you. Good, madam. You're next.
Hello, my name is Richa, and I'm a resident of Old Bridge. My son goes to Walter Schirra. So first of all, thank you. This is really very reassuring. This is something I was looking to find, because after the incident, I've been thinking about where can I ask questions. So this is a great forum. I work in the city. I work in a bank in compliance, and I was at a loss as to what the solution of this thing is, and we've kind of found the causes, but the solution still eludes us. Trying to think, how can I, just put the things that I do in my daily life into perspective here. And in the banks in New York, in the light of all of the crimes that we see every day, increasing both physical and financial, the banks have invested heavily in creating the lines of separation from where physically like we have drills about active shooters, from physically where we have the active shooters to where they have the employees. In terms of financial, they have lines of separation as to where you swipe, you get authorized at the main door, you get authorized at the reception, authorized at the floors. What worries me is when I drop my son to the before care, to take him from the aftercare, the only thing that separates me and him being inside the classroom is a door, and I buzz and the door opens. So I feel that, just.
There's a camera there when you buzz?
Yes, yes. So I just feel that have there been thoughts about increasing security in terms of maybe having like a boundary wall where you have surveillance or you have some kind of a security right up front so that the person doesn't just walk up to the school or have, you have that opportunity where you can see somebody unauthorized has entered from, a main entrance, and there's that that's that line of separation between them and the kids, and there's more opportunity to do something. Any thoughts along those lines?
So the points that you bring up are kind of like the great dilemma in protecting our schools. Do we make them, now I visited schools in China, and that's the kind of where they were. They're kind of a fortress. A fence around the school, a fence within this fence, and you really weren't allowed to come to the school unless, you had Title III protocol clearance to get into the school. And I don't think that was the intention of schools in the United States when we opened them, only not long ago. It's kind of a resource for everyone to come, the kids are outside playing, and to do levels like that, again, would have to adjust our mindset, and to that point we're making our schools, because it's easier to keep someone in than keep someone out. So it's almost changing our mindset and deciding as a board if that's what we want to do, and that'll be a conversation for the table and different levels for our after meeting about different levels of boundaries and barriers. The second point it always brings me to, I think, is kind of like the irony of the situation. As a nation, we spend so much money protecting our money, but we don't protect our greatest resource as equally as well, and no money comes to us to do that. We depend on the local Board of Education to protect our children with security and protective resource to do that, but when money's in a bank, we protect it wholeheartedly. So I wish we treated our children as well as we treat money. So thank you.
Thank you, ma'am. Next. Anyone else?
I'm a mom here, and I have children that go to Salk, and one of the things that's got me concerned is that they come home, my children are scared. I know that's teachers that they could go, but they're now at the point that when they go to school, it's like they have it in the back of their head that that something could happen. And more the media, the more information they've been receiving, the more nervous they've been getting. And I know there's a lot of channels that they could talk to other adults, but I always felt like if there is something we could have, like sometimes how you have parent university and you have those forums, but if some of the kids could have some people come and just speak to them so they could know that we are aware of their fears and we're trying to make it more possible for them to be more safe again. Like, I don't think we could go back to the time when we could be safe like we used to be when I was my age, when I would go to school. There was nothing like that. And also, I work here in the school as a sub. And I know the other said that when we come as subs, we go to different districts. We work in, some of the substitutes will work in the high school, middle school, elementary, and there's different forums for each one. And we're not giving no awareness or no heads up that there's going to be a lockdown or a fire drill or nothing. So most of us are always caught unprepared. Well, all of us mostly are. So that's one of the things I always was thinking that would be good, that everybody would be in that same page, because it would be a time for all of us to always think it could happen today and not be giving no information, so we could have that in the back of my minds that we could be prepared for the future when it does happen. There's a sense of when you're prepared, you're almost in a placid, you're almost given a false sense of oh, this is just going to be a false alarm. We're not going to have, nothing's going to happen. So that's the only thing if there could be training for everybody in the building, not just the teachers, substitute teachers, the janitor, because we're all adults there. And if it could be something, even parents could be involved in sometimes knowing what to prepare their kids, what they could, when they're going to school, what they could look for. I just think every adult should be involved, not just the administration and the teachers. I think every adult that's in the building could be a helping person at that moment. That's all.
Okay. Yeah, you talked on a lot of things. I just want to go through them in order in which you gave them to me. The children being afraid, I really want to provide as many resources for that as possible. I know it's very traumatic for our young people. My son, who's a junior in high school, he came home from East Brunswick who had a student arrested the day afterwards for making terroristic threats in the school. He was visibly shaken, didn't want to go to school. It's sad that happens. Like you and many adults in this room, I used to go home for lunch. I mean, that's how lax school security was when I went to school. I used to walk home by myself for lunch and come back on my own every lunch. I remember sit there and watch Don Ho with my mom, have a grilled cheese, and go back to school. It was a simpler time. Now, and even if I was kind of sheltered from even this horrific information, I'm sure horrific things happened back then, but I didn't really know about them because we had a black and white TV with 3 channels that gave the news, and if someone else was watching it, I didn't get a chance to watch TV. So now our kids have access to everything, all day long. It's just, my phone blowing up with Fox and CNN alerts telling me about what's going on and the latest thing, and it's just inundating, and we have to, not only schools, we have to, as adults, do better at talking to our kids about things that scare them. Looking at resources I can put online for you and to have resources available for parents. I put out a resource the other day through social media. I can put out there some more just talking points for kids. But again, it's just, we've given them so much as far as having this in their hands. Is probably not a child below age 5th grade that doesn't have one now.
Mhm.
And so they're getting information constantly that's not being filtered. And we have to do a better job of answering their fears for them. As far as, the point of the drills is no one should know about them, whether substitute, whether professional in the building. No one should know about the drills at all because you have to prepare like every day like it is today. That's what keeps me going every day as superintendent. I always think today's the day, and when you become complacent, you don't think about it, that's when something's going to happen. So I'll encourage everyone, we'll put together better protocols for our substitutes, putting assign-in sheets with the protocols right there to check off, I understand. Go back to the classroom, have the keys, you have to give in your keys to get our keys, so you can have the ability to lock the doors and open them. Yes, we do that, but we make sure that's consistent. And the training day for substitutes is like one day. We get the beginning of the summer. Working on getting extended time to do that, to go through all of this is just so much going on in the schools that is above and beyond than just teaching. That we really need more time to prepare you and to make sure that you can do the job that you signed up for.
As parents, we don't know what we could, like you said, like sometimes you parents, they talk to their kids, but some parents don't know how to approach the subject to their children. They don't want to make it more scary for them. So like if there was somewhere of a forum, a web seminar, something where parents could look at what they could approach their child, what are the key points they could talk to them about it. Because we want to keep our children informed, and we want to keep started at home. I firmly believe that. But some of us parents, we don't know what we're doing either. It's a loss for us to begin with. So if there was a channel or a place, a web seminar, something that we could turn to and educate ourselves so then we can help our children, because it's a different time frame. Some people we're caught unaware. That's what I'm just saying. So if we could give if the school could just put something on that we could go turn to, and then that would help us.
If I put together something within 30 days with mental health experts and experts on guiding you for these difficult times with your children, you would come? Yes. All right, so I'll put together something within 30, 45 days. I'll reach out to some resources we have with the Hackensack Meridian Hospital, and our own internal resources and put some stuff together for parents that are welcome to come to it. Thank you.
Yes, sir.
Hello, Tim O'Neill. I'm the president of the OBA and a teacher at the high school. I want to say one thing as the president of the OBA, but mostly I want to speak as someone who works in the schools every day. In speaking with teachers and ESPs in the district since the event, one thing that I have noticed that's reflected in some comments today is not everyone necessarily feels comfortable, especially in the wake of seeing what happened, with their training and their preparation, whether it's maybe a paraprofessional who isn't there for the full PD, or a substitute teacher who is in one building one day and in a different building the next. And there are concerns about not that there aren't procedures in place or that the procedures are lacking, but maybe inconsistency from one building to the next, and maybe inconsistency with who knows what. And that's something that I think that the district can take into account when they go to discuss what might happen. The rest that I want to say as a teacher, because there are so many different ideas about what should be done out there. I don't pretend to be able to speak for the members of the association, but as a teacher who's here every day, I have a few things that I would like to say. I know there are many moves that the district and the board could make, from looking at the buildings and the structures and the procedures that are put in place and the trainings, that I think some districts are maybe not giving the weight to that they deserve, because they could, I think, make the students feel safer and they could have a real impact. I also live in East Brunswick, and people may have seen in the news that they immediately went to the move to increase the police presence in their schools. I'm not saying that that's the wrong thing to do or the right thing to do, I don't know, but it is something that, as someone who's in the building every day, I'm concerned about. Because my concern is a gun being put in a situation that could become volatile, where there wouldn't be a gun if the district didn't put that armed person in that building. So I'm not saying that it's right or wrong, but I just think that has to be handled very carefully, where there are clear parameters for what the responsibilities of that person, what the parameters of the responsibilities are, and that it's clear on when it is appropriate for them to act and not act. And I'm sure that if anything like that is done, we will have very highly trained people in those positions, and that they will be very clear on what their responsibilities are. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. O'Neill. Anyone else? At this time, I would open up discussion with the board members up here, whether or not they want to say a few words. And we'll start from my right to left. Ms. Callie? Very well. Sal?
Actually, Mr. Dunn, I'd love to. I've been taking notes all night. First of all, thank you to everybody who spoke. We appreciate what you said. We're open for ideas. We respect what you said. The young lady, I think she's still here, that said she was afraid to go to school. Please don't be afraid. You broke my heart with that. Please don't be afraid, sweetheart. It's a safe place, okay? You've entrusted us with your most valuable asset, your children. I don't know what tomorrow brings, but I can assure you we will do everything in our power to keep our children safe. Thank you for everything tonight.
Thank you, Mr. DePrima. Mr. Dinoff.
Yes. I would just like to thank everyone for coming out and speaking tonight. It really means a lot to us as board members. We're here to represent you, and we need to hear from you. So if you have any other comments, or if anyone's listening from home, please email us and please reach out to us. The district is committed, I believe the board is committed to doing all that we need to do. And we are going to have a lot of difficult decisions ahead of us. But these are very disturbing times, and it's clear that our district safety protocols need to be assessed and reassessed and continually enhanced and adapted. And I'm committed to doing that as a board member, and I'm committed to making the difficult decisions that we need to do. So please continue to reach out to us. We need to make sure that everyone feels safe in our district, including our students and our staff, and that's our number one priority. Without safety, that's our foundational level. So without safety, we can't have an effective learning environment. And as a board, I know we're not going to let that happen. So please continue to reach out, and we'll do all we need to do to maintain the safety and security of our district. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Dinoff. Ms. Lent?
I
I was not as fortunate as many of you standing up here saying that when you went to school, it was safe and you felt no fear at all. I actually attended a very bad high school in Brooklyn. We walked through metal detectors every single day. It was similar to the airport. You put your bag on the conveyor belt. You got the wand, your stuff was searched, you couldn't leave the building. If you left the building, you were done for the day. So I understand everyone's fear. My number one priority, I moved out of that neighborhood because I didn't want my son to go through that. I didn't want him to have that fear. There was a murder in my high school when I went there, and I never wanted my son to experience that. And that's why we moved out to Old Bridge. So when I say I understand your fear, we all know your fear, please believe us in that. We are going to work very hard to make this the safest district for you, for our students. I don't ever want to hear a child fearing to go to school. I don't want to ever hear that a teacher is unsure of what to do in a situation. These are all real concerns, and we are working towards preparing, preventing. It's hard to prevent crazy, and it's hard to prevent evil, but we are going to do our best. And that's all I could tell you, is that we are 100% committed to your safety and your children's safety. And I hope you all understand that.
Thank you, Ms. Lent. Mr. Reed.
I also feel that our teachers, which are an important part of this whole process, are part of the first responders that we have in school. If you think about it, what happened in Las Vegas, what happened at the nightclub in Florida, those were outside events. The inside events are the ones that take place in our schools. So we have to have concern for the teachers and make sure that they are ready for any of the situations that we're talking about here. I have 100% confidence in Old Bridge. I went to this district. I retired from this district, and I'm back here because I love Old Bridge as a place, and I think that we have a very safe environment. I know that with the discussions going on, we're going to refine some of these things, but all in all, Old Bridge is a very safe place, and I thank our administration for that and the Board of Education.
Thank you, Mr. Reed. Mr. Singh.
Much has been said. I think this is a real issue, and it's been getting worse day by day as the society is getting such a complex in like many ways. There's no quick fix for this. What I suggest, I mean, we cannot wait for anything to happen to do something. What I suggest is if we can create, with the council's advice, if we can create a special committee for school safety or something that can review, that can include all the principals, we will review and suggest solutions for the problems, and we can bring it to the public. That can be a link between public, board, and we can suggest it to the state too, something, if there's anything that we need from them. So we need to start here and now. Thank you. Thank you for coming here.
Thank you, Mr. Singh. Ladies and gentlemen, I just want to let you know that this Board of Education is committed to working with our administration to ensure the safety of our children, staff, and schools. That's our primary focus after what transpired on Wednesday at Parkland, Florida. We jumped into action immediately. We don't want to let everyone know what we did, but this administration and the Board of Education took the necessary steps to ensure that we put procedures in place and reaffirmed our procedures, that we would ensure that our protocols were followed. We take this very seriously as a board, and we spoke with all the board members on Wednesday evening. We were in contact with the superintendent, and we all are in agreement that something needs to be done to increase our security measures here in the district. Going back in 2012, December 14th, I believe it was, after Sandy, I was the only board member that was on the board at the time, and the board took very progressive action to ensure that our schools were well protected. And at this point, we feel that we may need to go another step further. And with David Cittadino and his administration, we are going to do what's necessary. And I can assure you that everyone on this board has that commitment. And whatever resources we need to put towards it, we're going to do that. Now, we don't want to jeopardize, of course, the environment of learning and make it a prison state, but we are going to explore every option. And I can promise you that everyone on this board has the same mindset to ensure that the Old Bridge Public Schools is the safest environment for our children. So with that said, we will be convening an executive session this evening. We will be discussing, what we can do and can't do, but I can assure you that something will be done, and Mr. Cittadino will keep everyone apprised of our steps. I want to sincerely thank everyone for coming out this evening to voice your concerns. We want to hear your concerns, and we're here to serve the public, the Board of Education, and I can assure you that your concerns were heard this evening, and we are going to move forward in a unified fashion to ensure that your children and our staff is safe.
Mr. Dunn?
Yes.
There actually is something that I wanted to say.
Absolutely.
As I was
Ms. Cowley.
listening to my other board members. We're parents up here, too. I have two girls who graduated, but the other day I was driving by a university and thinking how open that was, and how, if something were to happen, and it was the university that my daughter happened to attend down at Monmouth. It's very, very scary, but I think the first step for parents in talking to their children, the one thing that stood out, many things that stood out as I was watching the news coverage of what happened in Florida, were that a lot of the students weren't surprised that it was that shot Cruz. They said, that they thought it was just a matter of time with him. So I think where to begin, talking to your children is, and I've said this 100 times over the last couple of days that I've been speaking to people, is identification and then intervention. So tell your children if they think there's something wrong. Obviously it can be anonymously, but to say something. You're not ratting out a friend, you're helping that friend before it gets past the point of no return. And you may be saving the lives of your other friends in the process. Not to be afraid to come forward. You can do it anonymously, talk to a teacher, talk to a guidance counselor, talk to the principal, talk to Mr. Cittadino. Just please reinforce that with your children. It's unfortunate. I think a lot of the kids, the survivors of the Florida tragedy, are feeling a lot of guilt now from what I've seen from the interviews. So again, just impress that upon your children. And thank you for coming out tonight.
Thank you, Ms. Cowley. I think I misspoke. I think that Sal DePrima was also on the board in December 2012, and he played a very critical role as well in coming up with a very progressive plan. With that said, I just want to just reassure everyone again, and this Board of Education did jump into action, and with Mr. Cittadino, we did meet with the police department immediately on Thursday to implement some additional strategies and programs to ensure that we had the appropriate coverage in our schools that we felt was adequate for security measures to keep the schools safe. But again, we are working tirelessly, and we're going to continue doing what's necessary, and I can assure you that this board is unified in our approach. So thank you this evening for coming out and voicing your concerns, and we will be in contact through our means to the public to ensure and to give you the advice and information on what we're going to be doing going forward. Thank you.
And then we're going to do... Just, can I say anything? Just as a point of protocol, what we'll do is, I'm not going to have the superintendent's progress towards goals with Dr. Tui. We'll do that next month. So after this, after anyone on us can leave, we'll just open the floor to any district items. Any district items on the agenda? Hearing of residents, any items on the agenda? For the parents that are here, on March 26th, I'm going to hold a State of the Schools address at the hospital, at Raritan Bay Hospital. More information will come out, but you can just mark that date down, and maybe we'll have updates of what we've done so far since then. So thank you.
Okay, we're going to move forward. Mr. Mara, do we have any correspondence? No correspondence. We're going to dispense of any special committee reports this evening. We're going to move those to next month.
We can touch on that as a policy.
We can touch, you want to do it now, or?
We can address that as part of the policy agenda.
Excellent. So we're going to dispense of the special committee reports. Now I'm going to open the floor to hearing of residents on agenda items only. If anyone wants to speak on agenda items only, please feel free to get to the microphone. With that said, I'm going to close this portion of the board meeting, and I'm going to turn it over to Mr. Parton.
Yeah, unfortunately, we do need to take a brief break for a quick, and honestly quick, Mr. Mara has promised, executive session to discuss one personnel issue. We plan to be less than 10 minutes, and we will be back, but you need a motion for executive session for matters of personnel appointments.
May I have a motion, please, to go into executive session? Thank you, Ms. Carey. Can I have a second?
Dinoff will second.
Thank you, Mr. Dinoff. Mr. Mayor?
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed?
We'll be back out in about 10 minutes. On to hearing of the residents on any school district issues. This is your time to speak your mind regarding anything that's happening in our incredible school district. Yeah. Yes, go to the podium. Thank you, young lady.
Hi, my name is Stacy Barton. I have 2 children. My older son will be leaving Glen School this year, preschool, and starting in kindergarten. My younger son will be starting at preschool in September. And I just wanted to vocalize my concerns because we've had an absolutely wonderful experience at Glen School. My son goes 3 mornings a week. Last year he went 2 mornings a week, and I was hopeful for my younger son to go to the Glen School as well. It was brought to our attention towards the end of 2017 that the program was changing and they were no longer allowing partial week attendance. It would have to be 5 days a week, either morning or afternoon. I'm a registered nurse. I work 2 days a week so that I can be home with my kids while they're small and kind of foster that family, attachment. I do the best I can. I think both my kids are doing really well, and it just really upset me. I wanted to vocalize my thoughts that I felt like we weren't given enough time to prepare, considering we usually enroll in January for preschool, so we only had about a month notice that the program would be changing. And I also wanted to just say in general, I was not really happy that that change was happening, and I really love the school. I wish that it would be like grandfathered in, or we had some kind of more notice so that we could make arrangements that made us feel comfortable. And I know there are other parents that feel the same way as I do, but, thank you for giving me the opportunity to speak my mind.
Thank you. I know that the pay tuition preschool program has evolved. It has evolved because it's really a product of our preschool disabled program. Without the preschool disabled program, there really would be no preschool tuition program. If I could have, Dr. Tui, do you want to speak anything more about those changes and maybe educate the board members who are not sure as to why the changes took place, why they needed to take place, so they can understand as to, why she would be concerned, but why it was necessary?
Sure. So for the past
5 years, 6 years, we have had a 2-day week program and a 3-day week program. For consistency for our special needs students, in some cases, our integrated programs, specifically one teacher, had anywhere between 45 to 50 students, because she was the one teacher who was doing a 2-day week and 3-day week periods. For consistency for our preschool disabled students to come into contact with the same peers on a day-to-day basis, we thought it was better for the program as a whole to run a 5-day-a-week program in either AM or PM.
Thank you.
Anyone else would like to say anything about our school district? I'm closing this. Yes, Ms. Burns.
Sorry, Teresa Burns, Lawrence Harbor. I have 2 children, and I had a question and a comment. I know that there was an initiative to change the verbiage for the emotionally disturbed class and behaviorally disturbed class. Was that enacted? I know that they were thinking of changing the names of the classes. No, okay. All right, thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Burns. Anyone else before I close this portion of the meeting? Very well. Moving forward. Any old business? Any new business?
I just wanted to point out that all the board members have an updated sheet of all of the events that I've been made aware of. And again, I want to thank Mr. Cittadino for reaching out to the principals, because we've gotten quite a good response. And if you just want to take a quick look, not right now, there's a couple of things that are that do require an RSVP. Thanks.
Thank you, Ms. Carroll. I think that, the ultimate goal of the board is to participate in as much as we can in all the wonderful events that are occurring throughout the district. So thank you for being the steward of putting this list together and ensuring that we get people out to participate. Thank you. With that said, adjournment. Executive session. I'm going to leave it to Mr. Parton to explain what we're doing next.
As mentioned to the public before, we need a motion to go into executive session for attorney-client privilege and personnel pertinent to school security issues.
May I have a motion, please, to go into executive session to discuss the security concerns of the district?
I'll move it.
Thank you, Ms.
Dinoff,
Cowley.
second.
Mr. Dinoff, thank you. Mr. Mara?
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes.
And we will not be coming back out. Thank you.